Hi, in today's episode, we have Angelique Parvez. Angelique is a university lecturer by profession teaching business strategy, but dance is her passion since childhood. She founded an award winning Bollywood dance school and a fitness company in the UK, but recently she was diagnosed with breast cancer and she talks about how she discovers her strength during the hardest year in her life and how dance played a very big part in her healing. So, welcome, Angelique, in today's podcast. And let's just start from which part of India are you from, your story about having migrated to UK and the dreaded sea. When that happened to you, how is it that life changed for you?
Thank you. Firstly, thank you for having me on here, Mahua.
It's an honor.
I'm really privileged to be here, to be honest. So thank you for that. Yes, hello everyone. My name is Angelique, and I am originally from the beautiful Mumbai. So that's where I actually come from. I moved to the UK a good few years ago now when I came over to do my MBA. I think 1994, so I can't even calculate that far back. And so it's been a long while based in the UK. So yes, thank you again for the lovely introduction.
So you came to do your MBA and you never came back into India again.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I came to
How?
do my MBA and I ended up staying over and getting married, setting up a company, and the rest
So
is
tell me
history.
all about it. So you met your husband while you were working, while you were studying, and then what is the company all about? And how did life change for you from there on?
Yeah. So just kind of rewinding back a bit. So, yes, I'm from Bombay, but I'm actually half French. My mom's French, my dad's Indian. We were based in Bombay. Grew up with lots of multicultural influences, thanks to the different culture mix I have. So, which was always amazing and kind of has held me in really good stead now because I can, see how different cultures work. I bring that all together in my dance as well. And then, yes, like you said, I was passionate about dance growing up. I learned Kathak as a child, loved it, just obsessed with it. There was no Bollywood dancing at that time. It was always classical. So I'm glad I had a good classical base. I moved to the UK, like I said, after my degree in India and decided to do my MBA. And yes, like you said, I met my husband at my first job after, and then decided to stay on. And like I said, first, my whole, should I say, my career was all strategy based because I did my MBA. I joined a management consulting firm for many years. I got married at that time. And actually, funnily enough, at that time when I came to the UK initially, for a good few years, I didn't dance at all because I didn't find the right dance class. I kind of lived too far from London initially. So dance kind of took a back seat. But yes, like you said, I got married, had kids, my career in strategy kept growing. And so, yes, that was kind of my background when I first came into the UK.
So it's so interesting when you say that, dance took a back seat for you because I think, we all come from, today the world is changing and there are a lot of people who are really embracing their passion and they're taking it on as a full-time profession because I think the time that we came from, passion was always, you were said, na, 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 you were not going to make money with that. So,
Yeah.
that will always stay on the side. And, sometimes invariably you kill something that you really find yourself in and like the way I learned music for a while, and then, when the board exams happened, I don't think I did my riyaz. And today I really regretted, Angelique, because unfortunately I found out writing back again. I used to paint and I used to do, so much,
Wow.
in the past. And, we give it up because I think in India also we are an economy that's growing and, most middle class parents, they want the children to either pursue, medicine or do
Mm,
banking or do a like a finance job or you're an engineer and anything that you do which is in the arts is like, oh, you're not going to make too much of money, so that should just
mm,
be a side thing for you, and it's
true.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's bad to do, to be a doctor. I mean, you need to pursue what you love. And I
Mm,
think for so many of us, that whole awakening happens so much, in the later years of our life, because we too are so conditioned with things that's right and wrong, and
mm,
and things that you feel that is the way it should be, so because your
yeah,
cousins are pursuing, somebody's an engineer, somebody's a doctor, somebody's done an MBA, but nobody's pursuing dance, and they don't take that as anything that's going to be a career.
exactly. And
Yes.
exactly. And it's exactly like you said, it's really sad. It is kind of our Asian culture, to, especially in those days, to be, actually even today, to be honest, to be brought up more in a professional field. And parents generally say, yes, oh, yeah, like you said, dance is your hobby, music's your hobby, art's your hobby, but use that, what you're going to do when you need something to fall back on, what's your
Exactly.
professional job. And so, yes, I fell in the same trap, really. So here we went. I went into strategy, which to be honest, I absolutely adore as well. And it does give me the benefit, and plus side is it does give me more opportunities and, to be honest, more income, because, the arts field is not that open in terms of opportunities, but still at the same time, it is the one that gives you the most joy to your soul, so you can't compare the two. One is professional, one is kind of, okay, you might make more money, but then you're at a desk from 9 till 7, whereas the other one just gives you joy and gives you freedom. So, there's a lot to consider. And yes, I mean, I would say, Mahua, there's never, what should I say? It's never too late. So even in your case, whether it's music or art or dance or whatever it is for anyone, you should just never feel like, oh, I gave that up and I really regret it, because you can restart at any time. And that's kind of my story in a way, because I gave up dance for 15 years. It wasn't a small period,
15
I
years is
started
really
working,
long.
focusing on my job. Then I met my husband. I had a family. I mean, dance was out of the window. I hadn't even thought about it, to be honest. I was pursuing my career, and then dance fell back into, my life again. But true, even here, I have so many of my own students. When here we have like even a secondary school admission, right? So the minute that starts happening, parents take their kids out. Oh, we're focusing on 11 plus exams, or we're focusing on GCSE and A levels. And you know what? That's actually not the best thing to do for the child, because the child needs an outlet to de stress. And I found, luckily for me, quite a few of my students decided to stay on while doing different exams, and they have come out with flying colors, because, okay, you can study, 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 but the poor child needs an outlet. And this is one thing that will help their brain function better, because when they move and when they're happy and when they're de-stressed with dance, for example, that is such a medicine for body and mind, then they're going to be more fresh when they get back to their study time, or their tuitions or whatever it might be, because they have had that refreshing break and they have moved their body rather than sit there day in and day out just kind of studying. So my message really is that if dance is your passion, and especially for children as well, you can take a tiny break out from it, obviously, when you have exams, but there is no need to give it up for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, like myself. Um, if it's your passion, it will come back to you as well. But like you said, Mohua, it's never too late. You can restart at any age. So my message would be to never let that calling of your soul, be pushed down, because that's what gives you that joy of life as well.
I so agree with you when you say this to me, because
Mm,
I do feel that, when you are also pursuing something that is your passion, you go back and perform in the other areas of your life also equally well, which I never got a chance as a child, because we had to put away everything that you enjoyed and do all the things that you don't enjoy,
mm,
because I mean, I hated math as a subject, but then It was unthinkable to tell my father that no, I don't want to pursue this subject. Till 10th, when he saw the way I was struggling, and my
Mm.
mother kind of intervened and said, no, 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 I think she's just going to like really fail the exams. And I had the luxury of giving it up, and I pursued art. And
Mm.
yeah, and then after that, I think, people don't talk also about women who become homemakers and they look after the children in
Mm.
the house. That itself is also such a humongous job. And like you
Exactly.
said, that for
Mm.
15 years you gave up dance. But was your body ready when you came back? Because, any sort of physical activity for 15 years, when it stopped, the agility in your body, the rest of it. I feel that today, the older I'm growing, I'm not as agile as I used to be before. So, how did you
Yeah.
overcome that?
Yes, and you're absolutely right. So, this is my second point, the next stage in our life journey. So, initially, when we're kids and we have exams, then we give up our passion. And then the next stage is, especially for us women, when we get married and have kids. We ourselves as moms give up everything about us. It becomes all about our child who's so precious to us and our family, and there's housework and never ending housework, should I say, especially in the UK where we don't have any
Yes,
domestic help.
I
Can you
know.
just
Yeah.
imagine?
No, I can't.
Um, so we're running around like headless chicken. But this is the second stage where you give up everything that you are. And this is my message for women everywhere. And especially this is why I set up my dance company, because I felt, oh my goodness, this has given me so much joy and happiness and physical fitness that I have to share this with other moms. And my message always is that you have to look after yourself first before you can look after others. Because if you yourself are not well in body and mind, how can you look after someone else who's dependent on you? And sometimes it falls on deaf ears. I find some of my women, sometimes they only come when, oh, they've had a shock, or their blood pressure's too high, or their cholesterol's too high, or now it's time to exercise. No, guys, it's like breathing and eating, exercising and moving is just critical and medicine for our body and mind. And without that, you're going to go down a path of unhealthiness, whether it's mental health or physical health. So I created this company and based around women's needs, based around women's fitness in body and mind, because I really felt with a passion that there was nothing out there for women, especially when I started in the Bollywood area, in the fitness, Bollywood dance fitness area. So to give you a background, I'm not a gym person, and I'm sure there's many people around the world
Yeah,
like
nor
me.
am I.
I went to the gym for 3 years, honestly, and I lost nothing, not a pound, because I didn't enjoy it and I didn't see the benefits. But the minute I started dancing, the pounds flew off. And more than that, I was happy in body, in mind. I felt so de stressed, so happy, and so connected to my soul because that passion came flooding back. And I thought, oh my goodness, what have I been doing without dance? And that was my message to everyone. And that's why I set up this company for people who want another alternative to get fitter, to feel happier, to lose weight. And hence, my dance fitness offering was born. And like you said, when you first come back to fitness after many years, yes, it is not easy, but that's why I have even graduated my program. So every ability can fit in. If you are a beginner, I will tell you what to do. If you're more advanced, I'll give you stronger modifications. But the best thing of all is when you first start with me and you're a beginner, it is just about dancing. You're only dancing and having fun, and it's not that intensive. And then you can always progress to something a bit more challenging. So I have dance as fitness and dance as teaching as well. So I teach Bollywood dance to kids, teenagers, and adults, ladies. I have an award winning Bollywood school actually in the UK. So that's beautiful for me because I feel like I'm still connected with my Indian culture and my Bollywood roots. But more than that is, when you teach Bollywood dance, so this is not fitness Zumba where you're copying me and just moving all the time. This is actually learning the grace and the steps and the expressions. So that one is not that intensive. So to be honest, there is no excuse for anyone that, oh, I haven't exercised for so long, so I better not even start now. No, you have to start and you will get better and better and better. I have women who joined me 6 years ago in my company who are performing on stage with me now. They are even becoming fitness instructors under my guidance. So they have just done such an amazing job, and they were just housewives like me. So if we can do it, anyone can do it.
I always say that, Angelique, and I can say that again, that if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah.
Because exactly like you, I too had the same journey of having given up everything, looking after family, home, and hearth. And,
Mm,
you lose your entire identity in that entire process.
yes.
I'd forgotten who I was, Angelique, because
Me
my
too. Me
roles,
too.
yeah, my role was so defined by being a wife and a mother. And, everything I worked around ensuring that nobody would be uncomfortable because of my needs. And we don't even realize when we put everybody else before us, and bang on, suddenly one day you realize that, oh my god, the years have gone.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
like you, I had a very deadly autoimmune disorder, and I was
Mm,
bedridden for really long, Angelique. And yes, and that was really one of the toughest times of my life. And nowadays, when I click a selfie, I can see that, like, the remnant of one eye that became small. I was almost going to lose one eye, and I couldn't walk. My arm that wouldn't go up beyond the elbow, So also for women, our sense of self is with the
mm,
physical self. Unfortunately, media and everything around you consumes you by telling you how physically you need to be fit, how physicality is directly proportionate to how much of a woman and how feminine you are. So I need my listeners to hear from you as to when and how um, did you feel when you were diagnosed with breast cancer?
yeah. So again, giving you a little bit of a background. So I started my Bollywood Dance Academy, my Zumba classes. So I was really physically fit. Honestly, I was probably in my prime in terms of physical health. But mental health wise, I was really a wreck, down to zero, literally.
Why,
I
Angelique?
was, I was running around, should I say, between my jobs, between my school runs where I was dropping my kids and coming back, I had the whole housework, different jobs that I was doing, family, obviously, lots of commitments. And then I had a few stressful situations going on. So stress was kind of becoming my norm. But I just kept thinking, okay, but this is part of life. I just have to keep rushing. I have to keep rushing, running around this wheel of life, as we say, not stopping to relax. I was not sleeping enough. I was very stressed. These are all really bad indicators. So if you feel like you're not sleeping for a minimum of 7 hours, good sleep at night, if you're very stressed all the time, if you have anxiety, these are not good conditions, and they're kind of the precursors for something terrible that might come later on. So you need to listen to your body. The other issue I had is possibly because of the stress and other issues in my body, I had really bad hormonal health for about 2 to 3 years. I kept going to my GP and they were saying, oh no, it's normal for women. It's normal for women. You're not 50, you're fine. This is normal. This is what happens to women. And again, I really say to all women, you know your body. If something is not normal, is not, that it's not normal, and you have to keep pushing to get that sorted. So these things I kept, ignoring and avoiding. So I was rushing around. I had too much stress. My hormones were bad. I wasn't
What do you
sleeping
mean,
enough.
Angelique, when
Yeah.
you say that your hormones?
What I mean is my periods, sorry to go graphically into
No,
it, but
that's
my
all right.
periods were like really bad. So I had really a very short span between periods. The flow was very heavy. I mean, this was not normal for me in my head. And because of which, when I went to my GP, they
And
offered me a
how
blood
old were
test.
you at that time?
So I would say in my early 40s. So by then, obviously, perimenopause is setting in, which is the point before menopause. And so these things are not normal, guys. If you feel that something has changed in your cycle or the way you're feeling, please, please don't ignore it. I mean, I didn't ignore it, but to be honest, I could have pushed harder. In the UK, our system is very different. Um, and so that's what I kind of ended up with. And I just kept bearing with it. I had very bad also, mood swings, physical pain as well, certain times of the month. So all this is not normal. And we just take it, for granted. Um, Kept pushing myself. And then basically all of this turned around and became like a kind of storm, really, if you think about it, like a turning cyclone that kind of was within me. And also, we tolerate a lot of nonsense as well as women. I have to say, we are put in stressful situations. We might have difficult relationships. Sometimes we just have to bear with it. And all of this just adds to the plight of us women, to be honest. And that's what happened with me. And then suddenly one day, I realized I had a lump under my underarm, and I thought this looks weird. I'm sure I didn't have this some time ago. Got it checked, and lo and behold, I was given, the diagnosis of a breast cancer. I mean, I was lucky that it was early breast cancer, but still, you know, um, you just can't anticipate something like that, and it's the biggest shock, especially for me being a fitness instructor. I was so shocked. I kept telling the doctor, it can't be. I'm a fitness instructor. And he kept looking at me to say, it can be for anyone. But like I said, as I was a fitness instructor, I was fit in body, but I wasn't fit in mind or emotions or hormones. And we take that for granted as women again.
How did you feel when you were diagnosed, and what was the whole journey? Because it would help a lot of our listeners to really
Mm,
understand, because breasts for a woman is her
I know.
identity.
Mm,
And we are most women, I love my breasts, and
yeah,
yeah. And I think we, as young girls, you wait for the day you can have breasts in your, like, the rest of the adult, because when you're young you want to adult yourself so soon, only to realize
yeah,
that it's quite a lousy process until you reach that whole space of being completely in peace with being an adult. And that comes really in the latter years. And I don't
yeah.
want to digress, but I want to talk about what is it
Mm.
that you went through when you had,
Oh,
for the
yes.
breast cancer? Because we are told that sometimes when it's malignant, the breast is removed.
Mm. So I was quite lucky. Like I said, thank God. I honestly have God to thank. I found it very, very early. Not everyone is, that lucky. I really appreciate that. So I found the breast cancer quite early. Even the doctors were shocked. They were like, oh, we didn't expect that. We thought it's just a fibroid or a cyst or something. Luckily, they spotted it well in time. It was a huge shock to be told I had cancer. There was no question about it. And everyone says that. The minute the doctor says, sorry, it is cancer, it's the worst sentence you want to ever hear. It's a shock. I was in a state of shock for 3 days. I had panic attacks nonstop for 3 days. I couldn't be left alone. My husband had to be with me for the first 3 days. I couldn't be left alone. Um, so it was a shock. It was like the ground was pulled from under my feet. I even had this weird sense of being outside my body, looking in and thinking, no, that's not my life. That's not my life. That's not my life. I can't believe it. I mean, it was the weirdest sensation ever. Um, so, yes, it was a shock. Like I said, I was in panic attacks for 3 days. And then I had to pull myself together because I am quite a strong person. I have been through a lot of things in life and I have been very independent, very strong. And I just thought, what is going on with me? This is not me. I just have to pull myself together because there was coming a point when I had to tell my kids about it. And I thought, if I can't even deal with this, how am I going to tell my kids? Because I do not want to be crying or breaking down when I tell my kids. I have to be strong for them. And so I had to really pull myself together. And I will go through that with you in the next question, but I'll go back to your point of how did things happen for me. So, luckily for me, I only had to have the lumps removed. Now, when I started going for my lots of scans, lots of blood tests initially, which is also awful, to be honest, because honestly, I'm the person who doesn't even like injections. So I had to go for constant blood tests. I had to have CT scan, MRI. Another thing is I hated the MRI. I am quite claustrophobic. So for me, my biggest dread in my life before was, God forbid, I ever have to go in an MRI.
I
And
have
then the
to
doctor,
stop you here, Angelique,
yeah,
because we have
yeah,
so much in common. So
yeah.
when I was going through this entire thing about the autoimmune disorder,
Mm,
and
mm,
they didn't know whether it was cancer or what it was, because
mm,
they were doing multiple tests on me, and I remember that they put me in an MRI machine, and
mm, mm.
when everything is closing in on you, and
Oh,
you're like in
goodness.
this space, like in a shuttle, and you can't reach out to anyone, and
Mm.
you're it's like a coffin that you're going inside, right,
Oh,
while you're
yes.
alive,
Yeah.
and I think you know only a person who's inside that MRI machine will be able to tell you how you feel when you have no clue what's going on inside your body, and
Mm.
you're like facing such such a space which is a dark abyss, and you don't know what's going to come out from there. So, oh my God, I mean, I'm in India and you're in UK. I'm sending you a big hug from here.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
and
You
it
too.
just,
You
yes,
too.
sister. Yes, sister. I have been there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And so it's so tough. And
It is
I've
very
written
tough.
actually a story. I've written a little blog about my whole cancer journey, really. And the way I describe it is like a mountain. So you first go to the first step and you think, oh, wow, what an achievement. I look down, and it's a big step up. But there is a bigger step to climb next. You get to that stage, and
Yes.
then you're like, oh my goodness, now there's another step. That's the cancer journey. You go through all the tests, and MRI was my first journey, and that was the hardest thing for me. So I got through that day out of, honestly, I had to research, how am I going to be strong in an MRI? This is no jokes. Um, my friend said to me, oh, you can take some tranquilizers. I said, no, I'm not doing it with tranquilizers. I'm going to just find a way to get through this. And I did. So that day was like a huge achievement for me. But then around the corner was the next news. Okay, so now it is cancer. What was worse is they found a second lump in my MRI, which we couldn't have spotted because it was very deep inside the breast, and it was in my second breast. So that was another a big shocking news, which I didn't have at the start. Then we went for, what did we do next? Then we had to have my surgeries, right? So I had one surgery first for both breasts to take the lump out. Luckily, it wasn't a mastectomy where you have to take your whole breast off. So these days that has changed, at least in the UK. They don't recommend you taking off your full breast unless it's a late stage and it's very aggressive. If they can do with just taking out the lump, then that's what they offered me. And I said, yes, please, I'm not ready for that mastectomy stage. So I had a lump removed in each breast. Then they test that, right? And then they said, oh, we didn't take out enough. We have to do another operation. So here we go down general anesthesia again, and that was another thing I was scared of, general anesthesia. But anyway, now I laugh at it now. And then, so the second operation, and I was so upset about that. But again, second operation, finished the second operation. And since the first operation, it's not just the operation. You have so many side effects when you come out of the operation. So I don't want to scare everyone. And this doesn't happen to most people, okay, except me, because the doctor said, oh, you possibly won't get any of the side effects. This was a booklet which was listing the side effects, and I can tick every single one that I got. And I was so irritated because I was like, oh, I got this. Now I got this. So literally I got a lot of, so what they do is they take out your lymph nodes as well. So I had a lot of issues with the muscles in my arms, which we call coding. I had seroma, which was liquid that was gathering in my scars. So they had to keep injecting it out. Did I say I hate needles? Look, it's non-stop needles. Okay. So I had to keep going to trips to the hospital to get the liquid, the seroma pulled out. Then I had something called lymphedema, which is liquid collecting in the breast tissues. Like I said, and then I had also a frozen shoulder. So I agree with you, Mohua, when you said you couldn't lift your arm above elbow level, I had that as well. My left shoulder was frozen for about a few months. don't forget I dance. So imagine I was dancing through that. But this is what I had. So I had the 2
So
surgeries.
this is called you are the bravest ever.
Oh goodness.
To dance through this all requires someone to be an absolute goddess, my dear Angelique.
Oh, thank you, Mahua.
Yes,
Oh, it was
because
tough.
you
Yeah.
don't have control over your body, you know. And I
No.
remember this because every day there was to be one part of my body that was getting, you know, immobile.
Yes.
And you're not
I know
even
the
ready.
feeling.
Yes. And you don't know because you wake up in the morning and you say, oh my God, oh, I didn't see this. Oh, this toe is also like, you know, feeling like
Mm.
this. Oh my God. Okay. The eye is like becoming even worse. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember I used to sometimes laugh. Sometimes I used to get angry and say, okay, bring it on.
Mm.
There came a point in my life, actually, Angelique, you know, and I think this is the first podcast in which I'm talking about my illness. I
Wow.
came to a stage where I said, okay, come, let's see, how much can you know, devour me?
Goodness.
And
Yeah.
and you will relate to what I'm saying because, you know, you just say you want to face the storm head on.
Mm.
And this is
Yes.
years and years. We are not talking about 1 day or 2 days. We are talking about
No.
years and years, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you know, my child was so young and I was desperate to be all right just for him because,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, yeah, and he was really a baby. I think he was 6 years old or 7 years old at that time. And,
Mm.
you know, and just few days back, in fact, I was cleaning my cupboard and I found these cards that he used to draw for me. And now he's really grown up and he's in London. So I just sent him a screenshot of that. And I said, do you remember he used to paint me these little cards that said, I don't want mama to go for any more treatment and get well.
Oh,
So, yeah. And,
so
you know,
sweet.
yes, Angelique. And those were the things that I pull myself and I used to
Mm.
pop painkillers, Angelique, just to be up and about for Neil when he came back
Yes.
from school so that I could sit down and give him food. I had
Goodness.
house help,
Wow.
but yes, you know, it's not like how it is in UK. So I can't even fathom what it must have been like for
Mm.
you. It must have been double, triple.
It's
And
tough, but love to
it's
you as
very
well.
tough.
Really,
Yeah.
you're a strong woman too. I exactly know what you went through, and yeah. So like you said, you thank God we're moms because if we didn't have that to pull us up every day, you know,
Yes,
at
that is the
least we
reason for you to get up, you know, because you have a little
yes,
baby looking up to you,
exactly.
hoping that, you know, because he or she doesn't understand.
Yeah,
And you
and I
so
totally agree with you.
Mhm.
Every day was something different in my body because my poor body had been put through the ringer, right? I had 2 operations, general anesthesia, and I had injections and scans, and they were putting some dyes into my body, and I can't even tell you, you know. So, and then luckily for me, thank God again, I didn't have chemotherapy, but I had radiotherapy for 4 weeks. That's hard. My goodness, what are you? We're putting, you know, again, difficult stuff through our body, and our body has to deal with it, you know. So, at every stage, I had side effects. I had skin burn. I had skin rashes. I mean, honestly, I had the frozen shoulder. But every day I just thought, you know what? I have to get through this. I did some days feel really terrible. I think some days, obviously, you cry and you have to. But most days I tried to just think, okay, today, let's just get through this day. Then we'll think about tomorrow. So, and the fact that I had my dance family also depending on me as well as my kids kind of gave me that impetus to stand up and move. And also, let me just say here, because I was a fitness instructor, because I was physically fit before the operation, guys, that's what helped me get better after so quickly that the doctors were amazed. They said, because you're moving so much, your body has no choice but to just obey you and move, you know. And I have to say that they said to me that people who are inactive, people who are obese, people who are unfit, they have 10 times worse a journey than me. And then they have the negative mental attitude as well because they are not fit. Then it is a harder struggle for them to get better. Whereas for me, I mean, after my first operation, I was up and teaching dance within 2 weeks. I even performed at a show in 2 weeks because I didn't have an option. I was left stranded, unfortunately. So I even ended up performing for somebody who I'd given my word to, who had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. But like you, I took painkillers that day and I just stood up and went for it.
So it's so, Angelique, when you talk about painkillers, I remember that my bedside used to have Mobisox. And then, fortunately, I met the guy who really changed my life. His name is Dr. Dharmanand. And, I went into Manipal and there were multiple people who couldn't walk. And there I was sitting, and I'm very particular. Like when I wake up in the morning, I have a routine, in life. And I operate with that routine. And come what may, I always will tie my hair. I will always be neatly dressed, even if I'm going to the hospital. And I was neatly dressed and I went in and sat there with the swollen feet, okay? And initially, I think I went to a doctor and he said it's a hairline fracture. And then I realized that the hairline fracture wasn't going for almost 6 months. Okay. And then, and you know how it is here in India, you have to be fortunate to meet the right guy for the right diagnosis, And so like you, even I used to also just like pop a painkiller to ensure that you bring a certain amount of normalcy around you. And I know the time my body and my mind had gotten so in tune with each other that I knew the time the painkiller was beginning to reduce, and slowly the pain starts creeping in. And, I'd become so sharp with this whole thing between the pain talking to me and me talking to the pain, that I managed it and I try to put up my appearance till I was completely bedridden for a while, And I needed help for somebody to even turn my side. I still remember one day from my parents' house, the driver, he actually carried me to the car, to go to the hospital.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
See, this is the thing, right? People think cancer is bad, but to be honest, what you had is pretty much worse than what I had in a way.
I became physically immobile,
Yeah.
And so, every part, my God, when I look back now, Angelique, every part, one part after the other was just like, it was just falling away. And I didn't recognize who I was. And so, yes, I completely relate to this. And you know why it's so important, for us as women to say that don't give up, because we have a much more larger, I think we're just born with resilience. I think all women are. And, for me to come back, like you were a housewife, I gave up my work, and I became a housewife because I moved cities with my husband. And, and this city wasn't with great opportunity at that time for my work and my kind of work. And my son also had a lot of allergies. And obviously, nobody better than me to take care of my child, and I'm really glad that I was there for him. And, but I think we have so much of inner divinity, if you want to call that, or you want to call it resilience as women. So many of us chart paths for ourselves outside our bodies, and yes. And I've seen women who've just delivered. And, like within few hours, like if you go into rural India and you go into places, they just get up and they continue the work at home.
I know. It's amazing.
So, it is not the body there, it's the mind.
Yes, exactly. This is what I wanted to say as well. Hopefully listening to both of us, it's just a message of encouragement to women not to give up. Don't have a cry. You need to.
Right? Of course, you need the crying. Absolutely.
You need to get the crying out. But absolutely. What I say is get the crying out and then change your mood and move on. Because you can't be, what I would really not want is people to just sit there upset, crying for days on end, depressed. What is that going to get you? Just be thankful you're still here. Okay. Look, this is how I had to turn my mind around. When I was told I had cancer, I thought, okay, this is bad, but it could be worse because say I was driving and I had an accident and I just died on the spot, right? That is worse. Or if I had a heart attack and died on the spot is worse with no warning whatsoever. Here, I've been told and I can change my life and whatever days I'm living, I will make the best of it. Because, the other thing, Mahua, is we all live like we're going to live forever, like we're immortal. We're running around getting the best jobs and the best cars and the best house and how much money can we get. And, but hello, we're not living forever. If there is things you want to do, if there's dreams you want to achieve, you have to do it now. There's no forever. So I just thought to myself, all right, we all living like there's no tomorrow, but there might not be a tomorrow. So this is what I told myself. God's blessed me. It's early stages. It could have been worse. And I have to just make every day count. And at that time, I hadn't gone public with my news, actually. So for a whole year, I didn't go public. I only went public this year, and I actually had cancer.
That's also
year.
Another very interesting part, actually,
yes.
Angelique, when people
yes.
deal with you with your disease. So
yes.
for me, it was very funny because so many friends who I thought were friends, suddenly I was not fitting into the drinking and the partying list.
Sure.
Because I could not take alcohol, with the drugs that I was on. And they took my call initially. Some said that I was suicidal, and some said, oh, you know what, I think she's making a big deal. Because you can't quantify pain, Angelique. How do I tell you how much it's paining? So, and you're so young. I was very young and I could not even articulate that. I was like in my early 30s. And, I was trying to really be a people pleaser during those days, because that's how we all are taught as girls in Asian culture, that you got to please everybody.
Exactly.
I don't know how it is in the Western world, but in the Asian culture, we're all taught that, you need to make everyone happy. You don't offend anybody. We are like a parrot. We're tutored, and we do that forever, ignoring our own calling. And yes, I lost a lot of friends during that time who were like new social friends. Of course, my childhood friends were all the time on the phone with me and talking to me. Most of them were not in Bangalore. And quite a few new friends also were there. I made friends with the doctors and the nurses and, and my house staff. I have to admit that they held my hand, and they, because my eyes used to get dilated, Angelique, and I couldn't see because they used to, I had uveitis, which is also another part of the autoimmune disorder. Like my my eyes, my shoulder, my arm, my toe, my back. I think all I was saying is this, that my neck, my neck too. So I'm like, oh my God, just spare my brain. And thank God, God listened to me.
Yeah.
And today I think I've been able to come back because of that, right? So tell me, how was everybody around you when you decided to tell people?
Okay, so firstly, like I said, for a good year, I didn't tell people. And why I didn't tell people? Because exactly that. I did not want people to have pity for me, firstly. I didn't want them to behave weirdly around me. I didn't want them to comment to me or ask silly questions, because sometimes people are well-meaning, but they might ask you something.
But some people can be really vicious.
That as well, yes.
I remember a very dear friend who'd had lots of lunches and dinners at my home, and she saw that I was not coming out because I could not move, and she didn't understand that, because before that I used to, really dress up. I love fashion. I used to dress up, go out, and I was all with it. So she turned around and she said, I hope you know that your husband can really find a lot of other girls who's going to go out with him if you don't go out. And when you're young, you're so insecure when you hear that, because you're like, oh my God, will that happen? Because as women, like, I go back into that statement that, our physical self is such a marker for our entire womanhood.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So what are the kind of comments that you remember? This one I remember forever,
Oh, goodness. Exactly. But like you said, to be honest, so the first year I didn't tell people, because also the other point was I needed to be strong in it myself. If I was going to tell somebody, I shouldn't be breaking down and crying every 2 minutes, So I had to get stronger in myself. I had to be able to accept it fully and move on with it before I told people. That's how I felt. And then come this year is when I told people, and they were shocked. They were like, when did you have it? Because you just kept dancing all the way through. So that's what I did last year. What happened was, don't forget, COVID hit as well. So everybody was at home. I found all my dance family were panicking, worried, my kids, teenagers, ladies. And I thought, oh my goodness, God, you gave me the strength to overcome something. And now COVID hits, and it's my turn to help others to be stronger through this. And I'm going to keep my dance family together. So I found my purpose in that time. And I thought, okay. And I found a new way. So on Zoom, I offered all my classes. I offered some free classes to keep people fit during this time when they were stuck in lockdown. And, that gave me my purpose to get up. Remember, like I said, I had so many conditions. But I just felt like, okay, I need to do my class for my students, for my ladies. And that gave them the normalcy of their life a little bit, and I'm glad I did that, because imagine 1 year for them without dance or activity would have been horrendous for their physical fitness and
also
mental fitness at that time.
Absolutely.
So that's what I did all through the lockdown while I was going through all my treatments. I did all my classes, but I didn't tell anyone. So then when I told them this year, they were just shocked. When did you have an operation? When did you have your radiotherapy? Because we saw you dancing throughout with us. So
I go through that also, Angelique.
Exactly.
Like people ask me, oh, when? Oh, were you? Oh, okay.
Because we just got up and kept moving, right? We kept living our life. And so they were shocked, but they feel like I brought them through it, but actually they brought me through it as well, because having them with me meant that I had responsibility for them and I had to get up and do that for them. I had my kids. And because it was Zoom, I was so lucky in a way, because I could do my 1 hour of class and then go lie down on my bed again,
You've said something so important right now, Angelique, that you did it for them because they were waiting for you. So today, when I reboot my career, I get up in the morning knowing that I have a bunch of young people who are working with me and I got to put myself together. There are days where I still have aches and pains, and I don't talk so much about it any longer because it's, the intensity is a lot lesser now.
Yes.
But then I think it's, we, as much as we take credit for ourselves, I think, people as women, we need to surround ourselves with really good, positive people who wish you well. Completely. And you need to have that antenna to figure those people out, and they are your reasons for which you will heal and you will get better and you heal them in the process, So
exactly. And exactly, I agree with you completely. And going back to your question about who was around me at the time, I have to say, during my hardest year of my life, I actually had the worst people experience, to be honest. But then that opens your eyes, right? Like you said, because friends and people you expected would stand by your side and hold you up when you needed the most. They're the ones that leave.
Oh, yes.
And
say that again.
Others who you never knew are going to step up and hold you up. So for me, that was a bit of a shock, because there were few friends and people who kind of, even knowing what I was going through, there's no words for that. But anyway,
I can just see you getting emotional when you're talking about it, because it's taking me back. Yes.
It shocks you, but you have to move on in positivity and appreciate the people who are there for you. So my family, my husband, my kids, my mom and dad, my sisters from India, they would be on the phone with me every day. How are you doing? What's happening? Zoom calls. So they were with me, and they were praying with me. They were, they were my strength. Then I said, like, my dance family here were my strength, but they didn't know what I was going through. But still, because they needed me, I felt, so important. And the fact that few of them, really stood by me through my hardest time. But you also see the worst of people at this time. And it shocks you, but you have to say, if those people were not with you at your lowest time, then they definitely don't need to be part of your life, because it's the people who stand by you when you're in the pits that need to be celebrated when you come out of it.
That you don't have a place in my table if you're not there for me when I was under the table.
Exactly. So it's about your whole mindset changes. I had such a difficult year. I can't even tell you, physically, mentally, emotionally. But at the same time, I had a wonderful year because of my family and my friends and my faith in God. And God brought me through it. And it's changed my life a lot, because I've realized the importance of taking time for myself. I've realized about healing. I've realized that it's not about physical health, but also mental health, meditations, prayers, gratitude, appreciation, breathing, visualizations, all these mental strength techniques are just something that needs to be part of our everyday life. And prayers and God and faith is what brings you through it. And like I said before, I really would encourage anyone listening to it or having a hard time in life, just remember that you are going to go through the storm, but you will come out at the other end. It might take a little while, but all I would say is take each day as it comes. That day, get up and move forward. Even if it means you're crawling, just stand up that day, get through that day. Then the next day, you can think about the next day. But through all these techniques and the people around you, like you said, support yourself with good, positive people and expect the worst from people and expect some terrible comments as well, but put them behind you. Do not let anything touch your positivity. Have faith in God. Have faith in yourself because you're stronger than you know you are. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So just take each day as it comes. And that's, my advice really to people.
Thank you so much, Angelique. This is a podcast that I think a lot of women will relate to, because women are struggling with their menopause. Some women, young girls, struggle with their PCOD. And there are so many people out there who don't probably have a person to talk to. And I think this podcast will help them understand that, we can come out. And however hard and, terrible the storm is, the storm finally has to end.
Yes.
And I always like to, I love reading Franz Kafka, some of his work, because I'm a literature student. And I just found this quote that said that tuberculosis adult Kafka, he wrote, "My head and lungs have come to an agreement without my knowledge." And that's exactly how it is when people suffer. But then also there comes the mind that comes in agreement with all the things that's suffering around you. And you need to keep that mind sharp and know that this will pass. And and we both, I think, are as examples, of...
definitely.
Yeah.
I had this amazing quote as well that I hang on to. It's,
please share
when
that
the storm comes, the person that goes into the storm is not the same person as the person that comes out of it.
Oh, yes.
The person that comes out of it is stronger, wiser. And actually, sometimes these storms make us better people.
I think so too.
They make us stronger people. They make us appreciate every minute in our life. So you know what? Life is about challenges. We can't live a life that's going to have no challenges.
That would be so boring.
That's not happening.
Yes,
Sadly, it's not happening. It's not
happening.
But if we don't have these challenges, we will never know our strength, or we will never be able to appreciate our life around us. So in a way, I feel sometimes these challenges bring the best out of us, and they actually change our life for the better sometimes, because we realize our worth, we realize our life, we realize what we need to be grateful for.
You realize your circle too.
Yes, and you get rid of those that don't belong in your circle, which is the best part.
You get rid of those that don't belong to your circle. And I can say that again, like 2 times around through all the life crises, all the junk and the rest of the rubbish that needed to go out, they left.
Yes,
and I'm left
all the
with,
toxic stuff from your body, from your life. Out it goes. You celebrate yourself, you celebrate your life. And, I have to say, thank God. And that's why I'm sharing my news and story as well, because I just wanted to encourage people to say, don't just accept your circumstances. Don't just accept your diagnosis. Just get up and live every day, because nobody knows other than God when our time it is to go. And whatever days you have left, why not use it to be happy, to help others as well? This is the life we live now. We just have to give back as well, and just have to change ourselves and make that time for ourselves as women to celebrate ourselves and to be proud of ourselves. I can definitely look back and say, wow, I am proud of myself. And that's what life is about, really.
Thank you so much, Angelique. Lots of love, and wishing
Thank you
a great career with your dance company. And I hope whenever I visit UK, I will come in and join some of your
Oh,
classes.
definitely.
I have a left foot, but well.
Oh, no, don't worry. You can have 2 left feet and I will still make you dance. I'm glad you have a left foot, by the way.
Yeah. Thanks.
But yes, thank you, Mahua. I'm
Thank you,
just so
Anjali.
honored for this.
I'm honored
and,
too.
God bless you and God bless everyone. And lots of love and a big hug to you virtually.
Yeah, big hug to you too. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure
Thank
talking
you.
to you. Thank you,
Thank
Anjali.
you.
To you, our dearest listeners, you can find us on your favorite streaming services. Find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and of course, all other major streaming services. With loads of love, we are Moody Mohavas Podcast, where Hatke is hot.